How different are we? In this session we will attempt to briefly summarize how contemporary research corroborates what the creation account in Genesis 1 and 2 provides for us in such a succinct but profoundly enlightening way. We will briefly look at how deep the differences between both sexes go. We will look at neurobiological differences, hormonal differences, differences in attitudes, in expectations, in marriage, at work, sex, and so on. And we will intentionally try to keep this brief because this is a huge field and there is wealth of information accessible. So let's get on it. What are neurobiological differences between men and women? And this is what British geneticist Anne Moir and science journalist David Jessel explain with boldness and clarity in their book. The truth is that virtually every professional scientist and researcher into the subject has concluded that the brains of men and women are different. The nature and cause of brain differences are now known beyond speculation, beyond prejudice, beyond reasonable doubt. But they knew how far popular culture has gone. As they put it, there has seldom been a greater divide between what intelligent, enlightened opinion presumes, that men and women have the same brain, and what science knows, that they do not. Thus, it is time to see the vain contention that men and women are created the same. They were not, and no amount of idealism or utopian fantasy can alter that fact. Another recent research conducted by an all-star team of 14 neuroscientists from the University of California, the University of Michigan and Stanford University published their findings demonstrating that, and listen to this, even female brain tissues and male brain tissues are intrinsically different. That sex differences are genetically programmed and they go as deep as it gets. One of the leading neuropsychiatrists, Louann Brizendine, from the University of California, San Francisco, explains in her books that while male and female are certainly more similar than they are different, our seemingly small neurological and genetic differences create substantial and significant difference in the two sexes. More than 99% of male and female genetic coding is exactly the same. Out of the 30,000 genes in the human genome, the less than 1% variation between the sexes is small. But that percentage difference influences every single cell in our bodies, from the nerves that register pleasures and pain to neurons that transmit perception, thoughts and feelings and emotions. Next, Simon Baron-Cohen, professor of developmental psychopathology at the University of Cambridge, writes in his book, "The subject of essential sex differences in the mind is clearly very delicate. I could tiptoe around it, but my guess is that you would like the theory of the book stated plainly. So here it is. The female brain is predominantly hardwired for empathy. The male brain is predominantly hardwired for understanding and building systems. Hardwired. We are wonderfully and fearfully made, equal but so different." What are hormonal differences between men and women? And similarly as with neurological differences, there are significant differences in our hormonal systems. For example, both male and female bodies produce hormone testosterone, but male bodies produce it on average 10 times more which then accounts for males being more aggressive, more dominant, competitive and assertive. And men generally are less fearful than women. In one study in Harvard University, for instance, men and women were asked to evaluate 25 health risks, and the women ranked all 25 as riskier than the men did. On the other hand, a willingness to accept risk can produce benefits. For example, men are more likely than women to volunteer for clinical trials, go into combat, or risk their lives to rescue others. Interestingly, one study found that over a 7-year period, 40 North American men and one woman spontaneously risked their lives and died, attempting to rescue people they did not even know. 40 versus 1. It's quite a proportion. We are fearfully and wonderfully made, equal, but so different. What are different psychological traits for men and women? A group of evolutionary biologists have examined Big Five personality traits across more than 50 distinct cultures throughout the globe and determined that gender-distinct qualities and characteristics are largely universal from culture to culture. One group of scholars describing their findings as robust and surprising said that gender differences are modest in magnitude but consistent with gender stereotypes and replicable across cultures. Some examples that they list are: universally, men are ranked substantially higher in assertiveness and women much higher in nurturance. Women are more communicative and relational, while men are more action-oriented and mechanical. Women are more likely to exhibit fearful emotions and anxious concerns, as well as desires to improve family situations and conditions. Men are typically more adventurous, excited and willing to take risks and move out in new areas. They are also more overtly influential in terms of leadership. Women are consistently more affectionate and sentimental. Where women see danger and concern, men see challenges. I wonder, where would we have heard this? Genesis 1 and 2 comes to mind. And those are not some social constructs or socially imposed traits. David P. Schmidt, director of the International Sexuality Description Project, in more than 60 different countries and cultures, observed that as wealthy modern nations remove old barriers between men and women, the old stereotypes, it appears that some ancient internal differences are being revived. What does that mean? When men and women have the opportunity provided by greater education, financial resources, and political and cultural freedom to move beyond traditional gender expectations and roles, to become whatever they want to be, they actually become even more distinctly masculine or feminine. That's it. We cannot escape who we are designed and created to be. And why would we try to escape from what makes our lives fulfilling and meaningful? We are fearfully and wonderfully made, equal, but so different.